Nicola Yoon's novel, The Sun Is Also a Star, comes to life on the big screen. But is this love story meant to be? Yara Shahidi and Charles Melton star as Natasha and Daniel, respectively. Now, the whole story basically is that Natasha is a young woman whose family is about to be deported, and she is very science-based, and she's also our narrator. And one day she meets Daniel. Daniel's a poet who believes in love and destiny, and he embarks on a mission to prove to Natasha that love is real. Now, some observations right off the bat from the movie. Now, our two main characters are supposed to be seniors in high school. And really, when I found that out, when it's said or kind of shown on screen, I was like, whoa, wait, I thought they were in college. I mean, they look much older than high school students. Think Breakfast Club, I mean, it's save for Anthony Michael Hall, but I mean, Judd Nelson, good grief, that guy, he's so far removed from high school in that movie. I mean, he just looks so much older. That, while they're not to that degree, I mean, it is noticeable. They do look older than high school students. The other thing that comes up in this movie is there are a lot of coincidences that happen. Now, part of that is part of just the whole narrative, because Daniel believes in fate and he believes in destiny. And so when you have those and these coincidences that come up, well, they play a part in the story, but it can't help but remind me of the John Cusack, Kate Beckinsale movie Serendipity, because that is also a romantic movie where a lot of coincidences happen in order for hopefully our two leads to come together and fall in love. Now, the movie is different from the novel by Nicola Yoon. I mean, mostly it comes in the form of depth. I mean, obviously in the written word, you can provide so much more depth, and you get to hear all of the inner dialogues that don't really translate too well to the screen. And then a lot of it has to be condensed, smashed together, even cut out just for time. Because while a novel is just, I mean, it paints this beautiful image and you get to see everything in your mind's eye in that theater of the mind, we have to be actually shown it on the screen. And it would take way too long. Nobody would ever want to see this because, you know, it'd be a 13-hour movie. The movie does change some of the key points from the novel. And while I don't think that they change necessarily the gist of what the novel is trying to do and the overarching story, if you're a fan of the novel, it really could bug you because some of it is just either cut out or not addressed or changed a lot, and even the circumstances that lead to something else have been changed or reworked, and some of that could be for time, some of it could be a political stance. So anyway, just if you've read the book, know going in that the movie is different, even though I think the underlying storyline is the same. Now, speaking of storyline within the film itself, there's one that it's almost unnecessary, and that involves Daniel's family. I mean, we need a little bit of it to set up part of his character and part of his actions, but there's a whole nother chunk of it that we're shown on screen that it's so just glossed over or barely addressed that it really seems unnecessary. Now, I know that in the novel, they go way into it, and there's a lot of culture that goes hand in hand with everything else, and it really adds to the explanation. It shows why Daniel is who he is, why he's making the decisions he's making, why the family is doing what they're doing, all of that. But we just get a tiny little glimpse of that in the movie itself. And then you add to that the part that there's an interaction really just with his brother that it's kind of unnecessary because we don't have all that depth from the book. And so if we're just watching the movie and just watching what we're seeing, it kind of seems slapped together a little bit, or like, wait, why is this happening here? The story itself is cute and fairly engaging, and the cinematography is beautiful. I mean, it's shot in New York, and so you get, you know, just sweeping landscapes, you get skylines, the sun setting behind buildings. It is beautiful and it's stunning in a lot of that. I found that they were relying on montage shots too much, almost to the degree that it seemed like they were putting all of these just lingering shots of, you know, of the two leads together, or as they're riding a gondola, or as they're riding the subway, or they're just staring at each other, and you just get a whole bunch of different angles. And it seemed to go on longer than it should have because it really wasn't pushing the narrative any further. But it also seemed like those shots were in there so we could hear more of whatever song of the soundtrack was being played. The acting is good and convincing, and the two leads really have some great chemistry together. I found myself rooting for them, and I wanted them to win. I wanted, a positive outcome to the film. Is the movie predictable? Yes. Is it romantic? Yeah, pretty much. Is it funny? Well, at times. Is it perfect? Not by any long shot. But is it still enjoyable? Yeah, it is. There's no real sex or nudity. There is some violence and profanity. I give The Sun Is Also a Star 3.5 out of 5 couches. Tell me, what is the best romantic movie of the last decade? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.